So I don't know if you guys want to open it up. You can, just follow the link to Be Real. That's BEREAL. It is the number one downloaded app in the social networking category on iTunes or your app, your iPhone. And I've been hearing a little bit about this. It's kind of a counterculture play. We all know what social media is like at the moment. It's TikTok and Instagram, and we're basically not being real on those platforms. And this app is saying, use this, share a photo, be real. But the twist on this, and this is the part I think is great, but also might be the reason why it never becomes a serious player in the social media apps, is you have you have the app installed, you get a notification once a day, and it tells you this is your 2-minute window to take a photo. It uses your camera, the front and the back, to show what you're really doing in that moment. And anyone you follow does the same thing at the same time. So you can imagine all 4 of us get the app. We all get told at 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon, go take a photo, whatever you're doing. You could be sitting on the toilet. You could be out hiking, whatever it is, you take a photo, and we're seeing what you really are doing in life. I'm not sure why it's taken off. Maybe people just like the limitation of it. It's not too much content. The reality of it, only connecting with your friends. You're not necessarily following superstars, which I'm sure if it takes off, you will start following superstars and see what they're doing in that moment. But I don't know if it's a trend or here to stay.
Yeah, you remember we were on a call, we were chatting about a different project, and I was talking about having, artificial limitations to try to force users to use the product in a certain way. I think this is really interesting. I think anytime launching any app, it always has to have these artificial limitations. When Instagram first started, it was just photos and filters, and that was it, right? Then they expand to more things, right? When Twitter first started, it was 140 characters, and that was it, right? Hashtags were not even a thing. I think you could only tag people with the @ symbol, I think, but there was no hashtags. Links counted towards the character limit. That's why short URLs became a thing, right? And it expanded over time, right? So I think that this is an interesting take. And I think it also tells us how to launch a social network. I've always thought that niche social networks are going to be the future, and niche being like a social network for a particular type of community, right? Maybe a social network just for people who love biking or just for hiking or stuff like that, right? But looking at this, and it's kind of like it's niche, but it's niche in the way that you use it, and kind of forces you to use it in a certain way, which I think is very interesting. I think I would use this. Well,
it's like, it reminds me of Snapchat a little bit. I mean, right? What's the use case for Snapchat when it first came out? It's like, so wait a second, I'm not going to be able to see that message I sent ever again. It just goes away. Like for me, I just feel like, isn't that anti-value? Like there's no value in that from a text message standpoint, but it's a totally different use case, right? So it's like this idea of disappearing, whatever. So it's like that blew up well enough where I see something like this, if it has the virality built into it, it's like obviously fulfilling somebody's niche use case. And I don't know, it reminds me of Snapchat.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but Snapchat, I'm not a heavy user. I installed it once and I'm not young enough to get onto it, but I thought the initial reason Snapchat took off was teenagers basically want to share private part photos, dick pics and so on with each other, and not get caught having those images on their phones or getting in trouble by the police for sharing underage photography. And thankfully the photographs disappear. So that was kind of like one of the initial use cases of Snapchat.
That's a story. There's no way that the growth strategy for Snapchat was dick pics.
for Yaro, he's like, I just pics, but no, it was more like it was Yaro.
Well, yeah, both, whatever you're into. But I mean, I feel like
I think that's a story that might be hashed out a little bit. It might. I mean, because I think, yeah. Well, the thing is, I think there's a lot of utility in Snapchat when you use it to send messages to people that you do know, and it could just be real low burden. Like there's a lot of burden that comes with social media sites. Like I have to make this perfect. It's going to be out there. People are going to see this. And I just think with how fleeting the internet actually is in some ways, and even social media, it's like, I think people want to lighten that burden. Like I don't want to have to be committed to all this thing. I think Matt said it earlier. So committed to it full time. It's like one snap a day. I think people can get their minds around that and they'll be like, oh, that's a good time for me to be social now. I move on with my day and it's not controlling me. Like I think it's interesting to see apps in some cases trend toward that. like less
I think
intrusion, if that
be
makes
real
sense.
is just like if you think of things like a pendulum and things go too far one direction, there's just that. And the further the pendulum goes that direction, there's more force pushing it the opposite way, right? I like the fact that there's an entire social platform built around the authenticity and transparency around that. But I feel like I guess it just depends on how much traction Be Real gets. But I've already seen that transpire amongst around YouTube and social media platforms and whatnot, because I think people are burnt out with like this overly fake view that they have of their network's lives, the overly filtered videos and photos. There are certain influencers that were caught like photoshopping themselves in Paris, and they weren't even anywhere near Paris because the Photoshop job was just so bad. I was in a very serious relationship with someone at one point, where she projected one thing on social media and it was completely different in real life. and I know I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that's been exposed to that kind of duality of someone publicly being one person and privately being someone else. And I think it's because of a situation like mine and many, many others. People are just not looking at social media they're looking at social media through a different filter now with their own, people are, and there's a trend now where people are showing like the before and after of filtering, or like, this is me real right now. If it's like a fitness channel or something, they're showing them their actual selfie image when they're not posed, and then a posed picture, just to show how different they appear when they're actually prepared for the content to be captured or not. I think it's an interesting subject for sure.
I recommend, if you guys get a chance, watch on Apple the Magic Johnson documentary series that's just been released recently. And also, I think it's another one on Showtime. Well, it's called Showtime. I think it's not sure where you'd watch that. Here in Canada, it's on Crave. Also about like the LA Showtime, Magic Johnson. And Magic in the documentary series talks about how there's two personalities. There's Magic, the basketball player, the performer, and then there's Irvin Johnson, the human being when he's, with friends and family. And I think this goes back to, I can't remember the name of it. There's a book and a coach around this idea of when you perform a role, you want to embody a character. And like you're almost transforming yourself into something else. Like, I am a professional athlete and I'm embodying that. And there's a term uses for it. I wish I could remember who it is, but I like that idea because it creates a framework for this is how I perform in this situation, but I don't have to be that all the time. And that's even for leveling up. Like, you don't want to be a peak performer all the time, but you want to level up. If it's like you're an athlete or something like, recording a podcast with you guys, this is not my real personality. I'm completely different in real life now. I'm pretty sure this is very similar to who I am, but I'm sure you guys are exactly the same when I talk to you in person. But I do want to, and maybe this is a bit of a segue, not to change topics on you guys here, but it triggered this thought when we were talking about this idea of being a different personality and the polished nature of social media where people are prepping things. And someone made a comment on a podcast I was recently listening to. I think it was on the Decoder Show by The Verge. And he talked about how YouTube is still the only like social video channel where they directly share revenue, and we know how much you get. It's like 55% goes to the creator and 45% goes to the platform itself. And no other of these social media platforms actually directly stipulate and give a share of their revenue. And when I think about, Be Real launching and then the Snapchat we were talking about, TikTok, it's even funny to think about Twitter. It's like Twitter's never ever going to share anything of their revenue with you because they barely make a profit themselves. And I was thinking, like, it is a unique moment in time when we have a platform, though, like YouTube, where we can directly get paid for sharing video content without having to do anything else. We don't have to do a brand deal. We don't have to sell a course or coaching or a physical product, do e-commerce, direct DTC, anything like that. We just publish videos, and if they go far, we make money. And that's kind of like the previous dream we had with television, right? You'd get on TV, you'd make a lot of money. And now the barrier to that with YouTube has dropped. But I have to say, all the other social platforms not doing that makes me wonder, why do we bother with all the other social platforms too? Why don't we just focus on YouTube and, go big where they pay you?